Welcome to Learning Photography with Duck. Here's your host, Duck.
All right, we're live. Welcome everybody to another edition of Learn Photography with Duck. I am, as always, your host, Duck, and I want to thank you for joining us to our Photoshop edition this week. I'll be honest, I don't have anything really planned, set in stone. I know over the past I've covered quite a range of topics, kind of building up one on top of the other. And what I wanted to do is take the opportunity and see if we can catch up anybody who might feel they're getting a little lost behind. I know, is Brian here? Brian and I had a short discussion at the museum about grayscale and gray toning, and he mentioned that he doesn't quite have a grasp on how I see grayscale toning and with some of my lessons. So I figured maybe take a pause and see if we can answer some questions, and because I don't want to leave anybody behind, so if not, maybe I'll whip something up. There's a couple things that I guess we can discuss. So before we do that, let me just take care of this stuff here. Of course, the conference, CTPPA conference coming up in June. I've talked ad nauseum about that. This month's photo walk is going to be at Chapman Falls. I try to get it for the weekend. I'm getting some resistance from the CTPPA group simply because, as it was stated to me, now that the warm weather's here or is getting here, a lot of the professional photographers tend to work a lot during the weekend. So the only times they really have is to go during the week. To which I replied, funny, because all of the events that have been CTPPA so far, my people, you guys are the ones that have come out. None of them. The only one they had a good turnout was Eagle Landing, the dam with the eagles. Otherwise, it's been you guys really coming out to those events. So you guys make me proud. I really appreciate that. But
guys plus 10.
Yes, and of course the museum. But that wasn't really a sanctioned CTPPA event. That was something we just kind of said, this is going to be fun to do. Let's just invite our friends. But the next photo walk is going to be Chapman Falls on Wednesday, April 26th at 4 p.m. So hopefully we'll get some good shots. If any of you, if you've never done long exposure waterfall photography, this is a great opportunity. I have a couple of circular polarizing lenses, and I think maybe even a couple of neutral density lenses. I have a couple extras. I don't know what I have as far as adapter rings, but I'll bring whatever I got, and maybe we can cobble something together for those of you who don't have a neutral density filter or a circular polarizer to play around with trying to get the long exposures. But
wear good shoes.
Yes.
Wear good shoes. I mean, it's within the Devil's Hop Yard State Park, so there's other places in the park itself that make for good photography as well, in addition to the falls.
Yeah, well, to be honest, Alan, I've never gotten past the falls. I've never
Well,
explored.
yeah, I
Yeah,
experienced it, but I mean, it's the falls from up above, it's the falls
yeah,
from where you're mentioning. Um, for myself, I can't do that walk anymore in front of the falls. I'm just not flexible or nimble enough
yeah, yeah.
to make that, or steady enough to make that particular shot. So for myself, I've got to go up and above.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, yeah. But just an FYI, there is more stuff available in the Devil's Top here.
Awesome.
Doc,
Yeah, so we'll explore it, you know.
Doc,
Yes.
if I may ask, um, this might be a good time to, I want to ask why neutral density filters are needed for a long exposure. What are we accomplishing with that?
Okay, so with nothing on your camera, just the bare lens, the exposure time is dependent on, well, the amount of light that you have available.
Let's say noon and it's 50 degrees.
Yeah. All right. So you have a lot of light in midday. So you're limited to a range of settings that you can apply to your camera in order to get what's called a proper exposure, correct? And so we have a moving subject, which is the water. And if we want to give it that kind of silky effect, what we need to do is we need to extend the time that the camera is open to the scene, so that way the water flows through the scene while everything else, you know, being rock and trees and stuff, are stationary. So it gives it that nice, smooth, silky look. But because you are limited to, you know, the range of exposure that's preset by the amount of light, we need some way to artificially cut some of that light out. So think of a neutral density filter as a pair of sunglasses that reduces the amount of light, which allows you to extend your time a little bit more. So typically for waterfall photography, what you're going to do is you're going to close up your aperture as close as you can get, whether it's f/22, f/36, whatever the smallest opening is. So that way you're choking off as much light as possible so that you can leave your exposure open, you know, as long as you can. It's suggested typically for a decent waterfall shot to be about 1 second. 2 seconds will get you a really, really buttery soft waterfall.
Now, would a lens make a difference? Like, say, for instance, a 20 to 40 or a 17 mil, straight 17 mil?
Well, yeah, so what you're discussing there is your angle of view, and that's going to determine how much of your scene you want to capture. Typically for landscape photography, you want something that's fairly wide, you know, in the teens, early 20s. That way you get, you know, a good chunk of the scenery. Especially with waterfalls, because you know, most of the waterfalls around the state of Connecticut, you're fairly close to them, so you can't really shoot a waterfall with a long lens simply because you're not, you know, you're not far enough back. So a wider lens will give you, you know, will create a nicer scene. As far as your composition is concerned. But typically, the wider the lens, the more light that can come in. So they make it really tough for long exposure photography when there's a lot of light out there. So we need to compensate for that extra light by putting a filter in front of it, and it's usually a neutral density filter that, like I said, literally acts like a pair of sunglasses and just reduces the amount of light. Circular polarizers will help with reducing a lot of the highlights and the reflection coming off of the water. But it's that neutral density filter that really, adds impact.
Neutral density.
So if you know somebody who has a neutral density filter that you can borrow, for the shoe, I suggest you do so, because otherwise there are techniques that you can kind of fake it, but it requires, taking 20, 30, 40 shots and then using a blend mode in Photoshop to kind of like mimic that soft, buttery, waterfall effect. But, at that point, you're stacking a lot of images, and then you have to do the calculations for the opacities, and it gets a little involved. So it's easier if you have a neutral density filter. So, and of course, a tripod.
Is there different grades of the filter?
Yeah. So if you don't have one, and neutral density, all right. To answer your question, yes, there are different ratings, all right, usually by how many stops of light it cuts out. Everything from half a stop to 1 stop, 2 stops, all the way up to 10 stops. All right. And at that, the glass literally looks like what you would find on a welding goggles, that deep, dark green color tint. You can literally look at the sun with it and it's like, wow, but they also sell, all right, like the circular. Actually, I should probably pull one out. Hold on, give me a second. I think where I got them here. I think I got them here. All right, if you're familiar with the circular polarizer, okay. A circular polarizer I got a bunch of rings here. I don't know if you can see this.
Mm-hmm.
All right. See how it's kind of, all right. It's 2 rings. All right. And what it is that the 2 pieces of glass have 2 different orientations to the polarization. And when you twist them, it reduces the polarized light coming into the lens, and you can really cut out a lot of glare depending on how you rotate the 2 pieces of glass against each other. Okay, but as you can see, it really doesn't remove a lot of light. All right, it's not meant for that. The circular, the variable neutral density filter operates the same way, where it has 2 rings or 2 pieces of glass, but you can see as I rotate, all right, it gets darker. All right. So this allows you to vary the amount of darkness on your coming in through your lens, and there's a scale here, that you can kind of use as a guide. You do have to be familiar with your settings and being able to calculate your settings. simply because you have to figure out, okay, if my camera is set for this exposure and I put this piece of glass in front of it, the camera's going to have a hard time, metering, because it's cutting out so much glass, so much light, that you might have to do the calculations in your head. It's not overly difficult. A lot of times you can even do it with shoot, view, adjust, shoot, chimp it, adjust until you get the proper exposure. All right. But what you're trying to do with this is you're trying to get your shutter speed down to that 1 to 2 second mark, so that you can really, capture that smooth, velvety waterfall look. So, okay. All right.
I have
And
no questions
yeah.
on that. So, since we're talking about filters, when you buy a camera, they usually sell you a filter, protective filter, and I guess
Right.
the one I've got is a UV filter,
Mhm.
called a UV filter.
Mhm.
So, I've used that in the past, and I remember the last time we were out at Salford Falls, I didn't have an ND filter, but it seems the thing to work out okay. And I guess I was also thinking that one of the things I thought I had, you might want to use, what's the other one?
Circular polarizer, yeah.
So, would those be used in conjunction, or would you care about that? Because when waterfalls, I guess when you're getting them all silky, you're not worried about the flash.
Well, no, you would depends. As with photography, there's a lot of variables that are at play. All right. So before I answer your question, Brian, let me answer Alan's second part. Where is a neutral density filter needed? And the answer is no, but. Okay. It is dependent on a lot of variables, the amount of light. Obviously, if you're there and the sun's not very bright and you can get your shutter speed down to a slow enough speed, then you don't need that variable or that neutral density filter. A lot of people will also use neutral density filters to kind of get their skies under control for landscape shots. And a lot of people will use the argument that the way our cameras are nowadays, shooting raw, they are so good that if you shoot with the expectation of preserving the detail in the sky, you can get away with not using a neutral density filter and then just do everything in post-processing. And while that is true, there are people that will argue that in order to do that, you're sacrificing something in the shadow areas down on the ground level of your landscapes. And of course, a lot of people say, well, you really can't get those nice, waterfall effects unless you are using a neutral density filter. But then there are people that say, no, I can do it all in Photoshop, and here's how you do it. And they actually do it, and it looks decent. All right. But it requires a lot of pre-planning. And a lot of people say, well, if you just had a neutral density filter, you won't need to go through all that aggravation of pre-planning the 20, 30, 40 shots needed in order to fake it in Photoshop. You can just do it right in lens. So, of course, there's pros and cons to everything. All right. As for using both, again, this comes to what the shooting situation is out in the field. The circular polarizer and the neutral density filter do two totally different things. If one of those elements is missing from the scene, then you do not need that filter. So, for example, the circular polarizer is used to cut down a lot of the reflection off the water in order to, not get all that heavy glint coming off the water and into the lens. If the angle of the light is such that you're not getting that to begin with, then you really don't need that circular polarizer. Likewise, if you're shooting a waterfall later in the evening, or what I'm suspecting at the waterfalls, because the trees, there's a huge canopy of trees right at that waterfall, so there's not a lot of strong sunlight hitting that waterfall. So I have a feeling that you can probably finagle it in a way where you may not need a neutral density filter in order to get an extended shutter on there. Okay. But of course, it's a gamble, because you may end up going there and it's going to be one of those days where the light's just not working in your favor, and now what do? You got to fight it. Okay, so if you are a landscape photographer, you should have one of these in your kit to begin with. All right, it's pretty much a standard piece of gear for landscape photographers. All right, especially the gradient filters, neutral density filters. And what it does is it mimics what's done in Lightroom and in Photoshop with the gradient mask. It allows you to build that, going from 100% down to nothing. But with a filter, you do it in camera, and you're sliding that to adjust, to your composition. Unfortunately, these filters are not cheap. They're quite expensive, with a good 100 by 150 millimeter gradient filter costing around $100, if not more, for a good quality piece of filter. Right, you can get less expensive ones made out of acrylic for about $60, but I'm not a big fan of the acrylic ones. I'm kind of partial to the glass ones. So, but they're fragile. You got to be careful with them. So hopefully that answered both your guys' question.
I've never really understood or heard of ND filters before. I happened to get one with my most recent camera, but over the years I've taken a number of waterfall shots that came out pretty good, but as I look back and think about them, it was kind of shady, and overcast, and there wasn't a lot of light, It wasn't a real bright sunny day. Even the last one in Salford Falls, because the sun, the sky wasn't the good part of the photo, so it just sort of worked out.
Well, if you really think about for landscape photography, the best times is early in the morning. All right, just as you're getting that morning light, or in the evening as the sun's starting to settle down. And the reason being is because the dynamic range, or the exposure range between your sky and your ground, are starting to even out. During the middle of the day, that sky is blazing bright light, while the ground, unless it's getting direct light from it, the ground is 2, 3, 4 to 5 stops darker. So now you have to compensate, and you got all that heavy contrast between the lights and the shadows down on the ground, and you have skies that can be very easily blown out. So most landscape shots are done when that contrast is a lot less, or on days when there's an overcast sky and you know, you get that natural cloud cover that's cutting out a lot of that light. But at that point, what are you trading off? You're trading off gray skies that may not look good in your photograph for that quality control of light, you know? So, but anyway, so that's on the 16th at 4 o'clock. If you
I
guys,
think you meant to say the 26th.
oh,
Yeah.
oh, the 26th. Oh, I have it wrong up on my, I have it, oh, you have it wrong. Yes, the 26th. Thank you. I was reading my other note and I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah. So anyway, and I don't have a date picked out, but I definitely do have a location thanks to Bill. Bill posted a that photograph from Hubbard Park. At the entrance, there's that water fountain with the kind of like, you know, very picturesque little garden area around it and the stonework and everything. So I figured that's a perfect place to host a multiplicity shoot. You know, and then across the street, a little bit of a ways, there's a kids playground that can be used, and I'm sure there's other features in the area that can be used for a multiplicity shoot. So I definitely want to do that when there's a little bit more greenery on the trees. It's still a little too early right now. You know, I don't want blah, boring brown trees behind us with no leaves. So anyway, stand by for that.
Hey,
So,
Doug,
yes.
I can show the picture if you let me, if I can share.
Yeah, go for it.
Let's-
If not, I think I got
Ooh, oh, we on. Hold on a second, open.
oh, you put it
Facebook.
on your as your header. Here. I got it right here.
Yes, there we are.
Isn't that pretty? There's a little gazebo there. There's is that a little man-made waterfall in the back?
Yes, it is.
Oh, perfect. Look at that. There's these stairs here that can be, you know, utilized. There's a gazebo. There's a little footbridge. So just within this area alone, I'm sure you can do something to create a little scene with, you know, for the multiplicity. So, and of course, a beautiful view of the castle, the overlook in the back. So, anyway. All right. Any Photoshop questions anybody may have? This is your chance to ask whatever has been bothering you, whatever you're stuck on.
I don't know where to start. I got so many issues. I mean, every time I go in it, just for example, I was working with a project, abstract. So I watch a YouTube video on abstract photography,
Okay.
and it showed you go to filters, you go to blur, and then there's like two other categories you go to. And what it did, it took the picture and you're able to distort it this way. Well,
Mm-hmm.
for some reason, I couldn't get to that third level. And I tried it on both my computers. I tried my laptop and also my PC, and it just would not open. I didn't know if I was doing something wrong or you have to open up something first. Um, let's see if I could reenact that.
All right. Let me.
So Photoshop, blur, breaks down to I can probably, let's see.
Okay, so well, I'm in. All right, so Photoshop. All right, so I just kind of randomly picked this
Yeah.
critter here. All right, so they're in the
Filters.
filters, blur.
Blur.
All right, so there's blur and there's blur gallery.
No,
Okay.
blur. There's blur and then that
Motion
one,
blur, radial blur.
I can't
All right.
quite read it. Is GAU?
Oh, Gaussian.
Yes.
Okay.
I would go there.
All right, so Gaussian blur just basically replicates if your camera went out of focus. It's just a very basic blur effect, okay? But this blur effect has no depth to it. Unlike a camera, when you put something, when your field of focus is on something close by, it's sharp, and then something like 5 feet behind it is a little blurry, and then you go 10 feet, it's a little bit more blurry, and then 25 feet, it's really blurry. All right, that's that's
That's exactly what they wanted, and that's trying to do. What it does, it makes it so you can't really tell what the subject is. You want the colors.
Right.
And the next step, which is what I could not get to, is if you take that photograph and you could actually twist it, or almost make that photograph and turn to like a ribbon.
Okay. All right. Yep. All right. So we'll apply a little bit of blur. Actually, hold on. Cancel this. First thing I want to do is I'm going to duplicate it with a Control J, Command J. All right.
Yep.
That way, if you don't like the effect that you are applying, you can just get rid of it and start all over again. All right. So we're gonna, what they say, apply blur, Gaussian blur. All right. And I'm just gonna put a little bit. I'm not gonna put a lot. Okay. You can still kind of see what the subject is, but you're not seeing any detail. Correct?
Right.
All right. So that's our Gaussian blur. All right. Another thing that we really haven't talked a lot about here is changing the layer into a smart object. And what that does is it preserves all these effects that we're adding to it. It preserves it so that it becomes a little bit less destructive. All right. You're able to go in and make adjustments. I'm not going to do that for right now. Let me just figure out what it is that you're trying to do. All right. So filter. All right. And I think it was distort, twirl. All right. And what that's going to do is it's going to give us that twisting effect. All right. Either clockwise.
Exactly. That's right. If you could go back, and I'm sorry, I missed that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. So this is the one, right? So it's,
yes.
Yep. So it's filter, distort. All right. So distort has all the filters that will, as the name implies, distort the image in some weird way. All right. So displace kind of shifts everything, and whatever gets shifted gets wrapped around to the other side. Pinch, whatever's towards the pinch point gets really, really tiny, and everything else kind of gets stretched out. Polar coordinates, that's for creating those miniature worlds. What, polar coordinates?
Yeah, and okay.
Yeah, so that works in conjunction with what are they called? The 360 panoramas, if I recall correctly.
Now I can adjust that. I mean, moving right to left, or is it?
No, what it does is the point in the center. All right, here, let me see if I can do this. This point here is this point here. Okay. And see this line here?
Yeah, yeah.
What they're doing is they're taking this line, this edge here, and this edge, and bringing it up to meet and turning this into a circle.
Okay.
All right.
And I'm looking at the histogram. It looks very good. What it does,
Yeah, well, that histogram is because of my image. All right, but what you're looking for is the distort. Okay, ripple is like ripple goes like this. Shear, I can't remember what shear does. I think it just kind of like shifts along a shear point. Spherize turns it into a ball. Twirl, like you saw, is kind of like the pinwheel.
right.
Wave, and zigzag, okay, but what we want is the twirl. All right. And unfortunately, they don't really give you that much of a preview. You can preview in the little window here, but
Can you click OK on it just to see, so I can see that?
yeah. So what you got to do is, how much of a twist do you want to apply? And that's manipulated, just by this little slider here. All right. This goes clockwise, and if you go negative, it goes counterclockwise. That's easy to figure out. You can kind of sort of see the preview here, but it's hard to really kind of tell what it is. And then you just hit OK, wait a few seconds, and it gives you this.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was, attempting to do and see and play around with it.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, I could not get that point, but you made it very easy.
Yeah, to be 100% honest, I really don't do a lot of abstract photography work.
No, that's
So
my first one. It was a assigned assignment, and then I figured. Okay.
right. So it's not like I can guide you to creating these phenomenal pieces of art. That I'm not the guy for that.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yes.
I can show you where it is. There we go. You're on your own now, Alan.
With a lot of your help, though. Thank you.
Yeah. As we've covered in the past, as you probably heard it a million times, from other people, Photoshop has so many friggin' tools for all different kinds of creatives. It's not just photographers who use this. I'm an illustrator too. I use Photoshop for illustration purposes, and it's a great tool for it. And it uses a complete different set of tools for that kind of work than I use for photo editing. Likewise for photo compositing or any kind of collage work. You're using, there's a lot of crossover between photo editing and collage work, but there's also that core set of tools that are just for collage work that you won't find here. When you start getting into these kind of funky effects, this is something that I would suggest experiment with some of your images, because if you like creating and if you like experimenting, for example, using texture overlays on your artistic work, this is a great way of really playing around with some of the textures that you use in order to create something unique to you, which of course is something that you want. You can watch all the YouTube videos and copy everybody else's technique, but that's their technique. Eventually you want to get to the point where you're mixing and matching and taking different parts from different elements and combining it into your own unique work. So, but yeah, by all means, play around with this. All right, let me back this out, and I want to go over creating. Oh, what I pressed the wrong button. Creating a smart object, okay, and how they operate if you're not familiar with it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to duplicate my base layer, and Control J, Command J for you Macintosh people. And all that does is it just duplicates the layer. As I mentioned earlier, all it does is it preserves that original background layer just in case you need to revert back to it for some reason. Okay. Once you're here, we're going to go up to your zoom, I'm sorry, your filter. All right. And you're going to come down and you're going to see convert to smart filters. Convert to smart filters. Okay. And you're just going to click on that, and it's going to say to enable re-editable smart filters, the selected layer will be converted into a smart object. Okay, smart object. All right, so what is a smart object? The easiest way I can help you visualize this is your original image that you opened up, in this case, the peacock. All right, my base layer opens up, and it becomes an editable Photoshop file that allows me to build layers in order to make all my adjustments. All right, and all those layers are kept inside this PSD file, or a TIFF file in this case. All right. So it's a file that contains a bunch of layers. All right. That, I can then print out and create a finished piece from. A smart object, think of it as another PSD file embedded inside. All right, so within that internal PSD file, you can also have layers that are separate from the layers in your original file. So it's a file embedded into your file that you can manipulate as you would any kind of Photoshop file by adding filters and masks and adjustment layers and all that good stuff. But on the we'll call it mother and child, in the mother file, which is the one that you originally opened, you're just going to see a single layer with the finished results. You don't see the underlying layers. Okay, you can double click on it and it opens up a second window that allows you to make whatever changes you want. And then when you close that up, it saves it and returns you back to the parent child. The parent file. Okay. So in this case, we've created a smart object. Now, as I apply, let's see, what was it? The Gaussian blur. Okay. And I got a radius of 18 pixels, just randomly chosen. Okay. And what you're going to see here is that underneath that, it's showing the smart filter with a mask. So you are able to mask the effect of these. All right. And then below that, you'll see the filter that we applied is a Gaussian blur. All right. Then on top of that, we put a distort filter of twirl. All right. In this case, it was about 280. All right. Give it a second. It applies it. And here we have our twirl added to that. Okay. All we got to do is say, you know what? That looks a little bit too strong of a twirl. Let me back it out. We can double click on that little where it says twirl here, and it's going to reopen that dialog box. So in essence, it's not baked into the image as I did it previously. So I can now say, well, maybe I want to make it 180 degrees. And then we hit OK, and it updates it. So this allows you, and this is a great tool, because previously, once you applied these filters, that was it. If you needed to change something, you had to start the whole process all over again, starting from a fresh copy of your base image.
How about color? Can I change color, or can I brighten one side up or darken some side up?
Okay, so at this point, you know, yes, you can, but those are going to be regular regular adjustments. So for example, let's say I wanted to, in this case, the twirl effect, if you notice, the twirl effect is literally a circle in the middle of our image. So these areas out here, all right, these areas out here didn't receive that effect, okay? So let's say I want to minimize that look a little bit. So what I want to do is I want to add a white vignette. So I'm going to create a curves adjustment. I'm going to let's just do it this way. We'll brighten up the edges, okay? And I'm going to apply a mask. All right, so I'm going to go ellipse, and I'm just going to draw a circle. All right, make sure that my mask is selected. All right, black is my foreground color. All right, and I'm going to go Alt Delete. Okay, and that is going to mask the center so that the center part does not have the effect. All right. I still have my marching ants all around the outside. See the marching ants? All right. So Control D, Command D for you Mac people. But that's a nice hard edge. I don't want a hard edge. All right. So at this point, I can do one of two things. I can go to my mask, Alt or Option, click on the mask, all right, and apply a Gaussian blur here. Or what I like is on the Properties tab on the Properties tab, okay, for that mask, all right, there is a feather slider. All right, so what I can do is as I move that, you'll notice that it gets a Gaussian blur to the edge, right? Let me return that. I'm going to go back to my effect. All right. Make sure that you're on the mask. Get that slider. You got to go quite a ways. All right. And you can see that now that edge of that ellipse is now soft, and it kind of blends it in. And at that point, you can always go back to your layer and make whatever adjustments. Okay. And then just like that, you have some funky swirl that, you know, you can play around with now. All right. So yes, you can apply additional effects. All right. but at any point, you can always go back to those filters that you applied, you know, the swirl, the Gaussian blur, and you can say, you know what, I'm overlaying something on top of this. Now that I see it in context with that, I think a counterclockwise twirl will work. So I can go back here, all right, and I'll make that negative 180, hit OK, and it's going to update it and do a counterclockwise. All right, so you can make changes that way as your work progresses. So hopefully that becomes helpful for you. I didn't lose you, did I, Alan?
No, actually, that looks exactly what I was trying to affect. I mean, that the blue, how the bird, how it swirls inwards.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I would be looking for. You didn't lose me at all. In fact, it helped me tremendously. Yeah, so, yeah, that's the last three sections. That's what I was missing.
Okay,
I
cool.
can go back to it and play around with it.
Cool. And of course, depending on what it is that you're trying to do, you can even apply masks to that. Get yourself, you know, a nice big soft round brush. Make sure black is your foreground color. All right. And, you know, we can go here and, oops. I'm losing it. There we go. Apply a feather to that, you know, and get all kinds of crazy, you know.
Perfect.
You could put another smaller gradient in there and make it darker, and it would start to give it a real 3D effect, like you're going down a spiral vortex type of thing.
Oh yeah, yeah. There you go. Yeah. Here, let me. Oops. We'll get rid of that. Yeah. Let's add. Yeah, I kind of like that. Let's add another curves adjustment. Okay. We brightened up the outside. Okay, so now let's darken towards the middle. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, how much of a darkness? Well, the nice thing is, because we're using a curves adjustment, we can modify this later. All right, so what I tend to do is I tend to give myself an effect that is very, very noticeable. So I might even go darker than what I'm eventually going to use, just as a starting point. Okay. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and apply a gradient. All right. What do I want to do? Where's my gradient? Gradient fill. Here we go. Gradient tool. Okay. What I want to do is I want to use a, let's go with a radial. All right. Radial fill. Okay. And we're going to apply it right in the center. All right. And we're going to click and drag to the outside. All right. And what that does is my mask goes from the center, you know, black in the center and fades out. All right. So what we want to do is we want to invert this. Of course, the shortcut key, Control I or Option I. But here it is, you know, in the Properties tab. Okay. The Properties tab. Okay. We have invert right there. Just click on that and it inverts it. All right. Now, when we go back and click on our curves adjustment, it takes us out of our mask. Okay. And we can see how it really just kind of chokes down. All right. If we need to make changes to that, we can't, oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Go back to our properties, all right? Adjust our density if we need to, okay, which is really not going to do very much for us. Let's say I wanted to, here, let me open up the mask. Let's say I didn't want this gradient so far out. All right, so what I can do is I can go to image, adjustment. Let's go curves adjustment. All right, and I'm going to just take my white point and I'm going to bring it down. Okay. All right, there we go. So I made the mask in essence smaller. All right, just by saying, all right, all these mid-tone pixels, I want you to go darker. Okay, say okay, come back to our curves adjustment, and we've now darkened down that center and just the center. Okay, so yeah, play around with it to your heart's content, and if you don't like that, we can make it even darker. All right, create a black hole. So, all right. Anything else you want to add on to this monstrosity of a of a file we're creating?
Well, it works perfectly for me because the objective, that's exactly what the direction I wanted to go in.
Okay.
And I honestly think that photograph is, what I could enter as an abstract. So now my head is like, wow, I know what I want to do next.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Nice. All right. Any other questions that I can help you guys with?
I have a big follow-up question to smart objects.
Okay.
It had not to do with this part of it. So you may know what I like, excuse me. Some of what I've done, I've gone out there and found these things, they call them Photoshop mock-ups. So I want to I use a lot of putting a website in a computer screen, let's say.
Yeah.
Or a scene where there's a computer screen. So the same thing comes up. You open up the Photoshop file, and then there's something off in the layers, one of these smart objects, I believe. When you click on it, it opens up the other file, and then that's where you drop in your screenshot or whatever, and then you close that, and then when you're back in the main PSD, the image has been moved over, formatted, and fits into the computer screen nicely. So I want to know how to make my own.
Okay.
Is that a big deal?
There's a lot of things involved with that. Okay. Smart objects isn't quite what you're looking for, though.
Is that what I'm using when I find these things, or are they something else? I mean, these are prepackaged things that I found, and like I said, another one is signs on buildings outside, and you stick something.
Oh yeah, those are assets. All right, so visual assets are like clip art, stock stock images, things like that.
Well, I don't know if I'm explaining myself. For instance, if what I've seen is like, for instance, a downtown scene. It's a photograph of a, downtown.
Okay.
There's a sign,
yeah.
Signage, and so when you open this thing up, you see there's the thing with the sign, and there's an image on it. And then over on the right-hand side where the layers are, you click on this thing to edit it, and it opens up another I think they call it a PO file.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So yes. That
And then
is, yeah,
that works like it, and then you drop the picture in there or do whatever, and you can do, like you
correct.
said, with layers. Then when you close it and save it, the picture is, and I assume that was smart objects, but
Those are, yes. That is a smart object. Yes. Absolutely. Um um but that's designed so that particular file is designed to be marketable for sale to anybody who needs to modify that file and may not necessarily have, you know, um, a lot of experience with Photoshop. So they try to make it as easy as possible.
right.
So they embed instructional layers and a lot of effect layers. So that way, all you got to do is just throw in your personal asset into it, and then it updates that file to incorporate that personal asset and give you a finished piece.
Right.
So are you, what, you're trying to
So
create your
what I'm
own?
interested in is, well, what I want to do is actually go out and take a picture of a scene, and then if there's a sign in it, what I want to be able to do is so that I can take that photograph, turn that sign into a smart object, so I can come in and, click on that and put my own picture in there.
Okay. Um, is it something that's going to be modified on a continual basis?
Well, I guess when I think of it, here's what I do. For instance, I do this when I'm setting up mock-ups of websites I've done. So I've got the handheld one. So I've got this guy holding a phone, and I'll open that up and I'll go into the smart object, drop one of my pictures in it, save it, open it up, get another picture, put it in there, and that way I build a gallery of smartphone pictures with my clients' websites on it.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah. So, all right, you're making me think. As I said, there's a number of ways of accomplishing different tasks in Photoshop. Okay. Uh, that particular use of smart objects is a great way of creating what's called a live document. Right? Live document is something that you can update on a regular basis with a minimal amount of disturbance to the overall file. You go to a specific place, and that's where your image gets adjusted. Okay. For what you're looking to do, yeah, you can get away with it, but I think there's probably easier methods of accomplishing the same thing. So what you're trying to do is create.
I think what I want to do it, and maybe it's, I'd like to put one out there to see if people like it, but I want to make one of those things. Like that I can go out and find up on Photoshop mockups. They got
Okay.
all sorts of cans and I did one with t-shirts one day. I was helping this guy mock up some t-shirts. And I thought that would be kind of neat if I could go out and get my own models, take a picture of them, and then turn the t-shirt image into an image I want to use. What I thought was interesting when the way they do it is, like, for instance, on the like the mock-up of a phone, that someone holding a smartphone, they're holding it at an angle, and it's bit twisted and it looks perspective and fits. But when you drop the picture into the smart object, you're just dropping a regular picture, and somehow
Right.
Photoshop does its magic. Because I used to do it the old-fashioned way, just bring another image in as a layer and part around with it with the formatting, whatever, the transform tool.
Right.
That can be
Okay.
interesting.
Edit, okay, let me just pull that up. Okay. So one way that you can do this, I don't have a photo quite like what you're mentioning it. Um, let's edit. Okay. Okay, here we go. So there's a couple of ways to do it. One is like let's take the example of the the photo of the cell phone in the hand. Okay, you either photograph it or you get a stock image that you want, and what you're going to do is you're going to mask the part of the cell phone that you want your image to come through. Okay, and so now the image that you want has to sit underneath this layer in order to come through, and then you just angle it and perspective it the way you need to in order to fit. Okay, but you probably already see the problem is every time you want to update it, you have to finagle and warp and manipulate the image in order to fit. So one way to do it is to create a image box, okay, an image frame. Apply your manipulations to the image frame, and then all you got to do then is just, oops, I want this one here. All right, let's see. Yes. Okay. We can take it and put it into our frame here.
You're on full screen.
Oh,
Or wait till you.
sorry. Yeah, let me back up. Control Z, Z. All right, Z. All right, so we have an image frame. Okay. I'll just kind of give you a quick rundown. I haven't really played too much with these, but an image frame is nothing more than a placeholder. Okay. It's just a placeholder for you to insert an image into. So if you played around with the page layout templates in Lightroom, when you create a page template, it has the rectangle, and then all you do is you just drop your image into it and it automatically updates. That's what this is. All right. It's just a placeholder saying, hey, we're going to place an image into this spot here. All right. So you just go right up here in the menu, in the toolbar. All right. And, you can make them whatever size you need. Okay. Once you have it, then you just take the whatever image you want to use. All right. In this case, I'm going to just grab this random photo. I'm going to drag it into my layout here. Yes. Okay. And you'll notice that, let me zoom out. That's a rather large image that it's huge. Okay. And it sits on top of everything else, right? Okay. So what I want to do is I want to put this into that frame. So if we look over in our layer stack here, you'll notice that that image, I placed it right above my frame. Okay. So all I got to do now is I just got to take that, click and drag it onto that frame, and it's now going to insert it into that frame. Okay. And I just size it accordingly, and we're done. All right. Obviously, the frame and the orientation of the frame is horizontal, while the orientation of the image is vertical. Obviously, you'd want to make that appropriate. I hate those guides here. Okay, so let's say we're doing this. Okay, there we go. Now we can go ahead and resize this accordingly. Okay. And the nice thing is, you can create a smart object from this. Okay. Let's see if I can remember how to do it. Convert to smart filters. We're going to make it a smart object. Okay. We double click. Oh, cancel. We double click on it. It's going to open it up as its own, as its own file. All right. So if you notice up here, we now have layer 1 frame PSB. Okay. And we now have a new layer stack that we can now put whatever effects that we want to add to this, we apply here. Okay. So let's say you're going to do a vignette. We can apply a vignette. I'll just do it very, very quickly here, just so you can see here. Okay. Let's say you want to add text to this. All right. We'll just go sample. Okay. And we make that large. Where's my text? Let's make it dark. Oh, I don't know what color to make it. I'm not even seeing it. Say okay. 72. There we go. All right, let's go. I'm just doing this quick just to kind of show you. All right, we'll put that there. All right. We do Control S to save. I can now close that out, and you can see in my original document, all right, it added that vignette, it added, the sample text, but you're not seeing any of that in this layer stack here. Okay. So within this frame, you can apply whatever, adjustments, so that next time you come along, you say, you know what, let me grab this picture of the bird. All right. So I'm going to go ahead, edit, open in. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and click and drag it over here. Say yes. It's huge, so let me, size this down. All right. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna get rid of that. I don't want to do it here. I want to do it within this frame. So I'm gonna go to my layer. Okay. I'm gonna rename this. Let's call it live frame. Just for, all right, double click on that. It opens it up. All right, now I can go ahead and go to my bird, click and drag that over, drop it in, say yes, okay. Drop it down below. Drop it right onto there. Oh, it's not letting me, okay. Delete that. There we go. Control save. Close that. Go back to my original. And there it is, updated. Okay. Does that make sense to you?
Yes. So the deal was in this one, first you create this thing called an image frame.
Yep. So yeah,
Yeah.
so here, let me delete that. I'll take you step by step. Okay. So we're gonna go to our image frame from the toolbar. Okay. Select that. We're gonna create our frame within the document. All right. So in this case, you know, like I said earlier, you have the stock photo of the phone. All right. You're gonna place the frame on the layer below. All right, because the cell phone's going to have the mask, so that the area of the cell phone is revealed. Correct. All right. So you're going to put the frame below that. You're going to angle it according to what you need. All right. Once you have that frame, you're going to go filter, convert to smart filter, and hit OK. All right. And then all you got to do is double click on that. There's your filter. All right. Let's go to this image here. We're going to go to our frame. Say yes. There it is inside our frame. Go Control Save. We can now close this. All right. And there it is, updated. All right. And of course, because this is, live, what we can do is if, oops, wrong one, come on. Come on. It's not letting me rotate this. Why isn't it letting me rotate? Now let, oh, I see. It did on the whole. There we go. All right. So you would rotate it to, whatever orientation for your mask. All right. Come through that cell phone. All right. And then every time.
You're just rotating this image frame, yes? Right here? That's what you rotated the image
frame? I rotated the whole thing. So yeah. All right. But as you can see, the original is not rotated. All right. So now I can come in, like I said before, you want to add text, sample, say okay. All right. Where's our, it's really tiny. So let's make that. Let's go. My text is like really, really tiny in here. Let's Control Alt. Let's make that bigger. 72 point. Yeah. Okay. There we go. Sample. Text. Okay. There we go. Now we can see it. Put it wherever you need it. File. Save. All right. If you're going to continue working it, you don't need to close it. As you can see, you go back, it's going to update it. And then you just go over here, do whatever change you need. When you're done, then you can go ahead, let's say you're going to add, let's add a box, and we're going to make our box white. Our outline, our fill is white. Our outline is none. Okay. And I want to give this a opacity of, let's say, 30%. This is something that I like doing on some of my text stuff. All right, we'll take it here and we'll put it underneath our text, and we now have a nice little whatchamacallit, a little standoff. All right, we go File, Save, we come back to our original, and there it is. Okay.
So my question earlier, what we're looking at right now, you just, that's the image frame, but you rotated it. That's what you're doing there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're gonna make your modifications for how it fits into the page
Right.
on here, in this document. All right.
Right.
But whenever you want to change the contents, you're going to do it in this document.
Right.
All right.
I'm still concerned about making something like a computer screen that when a hand's holding it, it's more than just that. You probably have to do some perspective adjustments and stuff on
Probably, yeah.
on the image frame. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. No, this is exactly how they do it, and that's what I was looking for.
Right. So let's see. Control T, and let's see if we can image, transform, perspective.
Yep, there you go.
All right, there we go. Enter. Okay. Now we can come back, and let's say we don't want that bird. We'll get rid of the bird. Where's this one here? We'll click and drag that over, drop it into our thing there. We'll size it down accordingly. However you want it to fit into that space, right? Let's say I want to change my text. I don't want it to be that god awful green. I want, let's say let's see what blue looks. Oh, there we go. All right. And now I want that rectangle, instead of being, very, very light, maybe I want, instead of 30, I'll do it 50%. All right. Say, and maybe instead of white, I want black. See what that looks like. Oh, that's a little bit too dark. All right. So let's go back to 20%. Let's go 30%. We'll keep it 30%. Now that I'm looking at it, because I can see it live, that blue's not going to work. Let's make it yellow. All right, that works better. All right. File, save. Where's save? File, save. And we go back to our layout, and there it is. Okay.
So when I used to do this, I would do all what you just did, and
To every single one, right?
every one, oh, God.
Well, the nice thing is, okay, here, look at this. All right, we go. All right, we got this rectangle here. We'll get rid of that. We'll take this one, Control J to duplicate it, right? Okay. And we'll double click that one. We'll come here, drop that, say yes. Okay, we'll get rid of that old one. We'll put in the new one. File, save. Oh,
You just answered my
Oh,
follow-up question.
I did not expect that.
That's what I was hoping for, though. I have one of my things that I use. It's got the guy's got a laptop and a desktop, and the same image is on both. And that's the way that he did it, right there. What you just did. That's cool.
Oh, okay. I learned something new. When you duplicate it, it duplicates everything. All right. So in order to get a second one, you're going to have to create a new frame. That's interesting. Filter, convert to smart filter. Okay. So that is interesting. I learned something new today. Where's my bridge? Where's my bridge? Here we go. All right. Frame 2. Say yes. We'll drop that down. Okay. We'll make that really, really tiny. Okay, file, save, place. Yes, okay. And where were we? Page, there we go. All right, now we have a totally different one. Okay. All right, now can we take this one? Image, transform, perspective. All right, we'll change the let me zoom out. We'll change the perspective to be a little bit different here. Make it smaller. All right. Okay. B, put that there. Okay, yeah, all right. So yes, you can format it for 2 different views, and it looks like it's going to update. So that's good to know. That's good to know. So that will work for you, right?
Yes.
So we take that, and let's say we want the text for some reason to be white. We'll change it to white. Let's see what it does. All right. Hey, none of that. That's contagious. File, save, and we come back. Oh yeah, awesome. Look at that. It applied it to both. And it has 2 different perspectives on it. So good to know. I learned something new. I don't play with this tool too much. I'm familiar with it. I don't use it for my own stuff. I do page layout work in totally different thing. But
You did a hell of a job for not using it that much.
here's something that I will share with you. All right. These are now assets. Okay. So let's say you want this as a asset. You go here and it says frame 1 copy right here, right? So we'll do layout layout 1, and we'll call it .jpeg. Okay. We'll go to this one here, and we'll call that layout 2.jpg. Okay. And then this one here with the bridge, we'll call that layout 3.jpg. Okay, let's see if I can remember this now. All right. Edit. Let's see, where is it? File, generate, image assets. File, generate, image assets. Okay. And I can't remember where it puts them. Let's see if I can remember. Give me 1 second. It should keep them with the same in the same folder as the file. If I remember correctly. Is it miscellaneous? Classroom? Let's see. Page layout assets. Here it is. All right. So let me zoom. Let me find it. Oh, here it is. Page layout.psd. That's this file here. Okay. When you do that file, generate assets. Okay, it's going to create this page layout assets. All right, so it's going to keep the file name, which is page layout, and then it's going to append the dash assets, right? Now, if we click on here, look what we got. We have our JPEG. We'll open that. There's our JPEG for that one. And it doesn't have to be JPEG. You can export it as a PNG. Here's the other one, and here's the other one. Okay, so now when you go to build your actual website, you've now pulled the assets right from your file that is already pre-configured to work with that template that you created. So all you got to do is just drop them into your HTML file. Does that help you?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm going to,
Doc?
yeah.
If I can toot my horn about how, you said don't know where to use this or wouldn't have much use. But if there's people displaying art or other types of things, and I was thinking about this because we were at that museum the other night, because I want to take some indoor pictures of museums, not for the art, but for the layout of the room. If you go to logosbruce.com and go down to where it says Skin Deep Collection, you'll see where I turned his gallery into, well, a nice visual gallery
What's it called?
slideshow into logos, yeah, SBRUCE.com.
Art by Bruce. Oh, yes. I remember you talking to me about this.
So go down
a
one
while
where
back.
it says the Skin Deep Collection, but see that thing on the left? Don't right you past it. Right there, the one that's above a little bit.
Okay.
Just watch that for a second.
Oh, this?
Now don't go.
Oh.
Yeah, see these two pictures.
Yeah.
And that was just a stock, mock-up thing I found somewhere. And
Okay.
I dropped his pictures in there.
Nice.
But it just seemed like a nice way to
No, that's
show off the artwork.
That's gorgeous. Yeah, absolutely.
So what I want to do now, and I've done this with street views and street signs and that type of thing, but I want to now go out and find my own. Like I was saying, when I was at the art museum the other night, I was looking at other stuff besides the art.
Right. Yeah. No, this is a perfect solution. Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah, so what I did is I just came back to Photoshop. I changed on this one, I changed the JPEG to PNG. All right, and I then went to my file, generate image assets, okay? And it gave me a PNG with an invisible background. Okay, so hopefully that little trick will save you some time and effort in generating website assets for you. Okay, awesome. Some really good exploration of some tools that I normally don't cover here. So thank you, Alan, for launching us on this train, and Brian for following up in the caboose. Okay. I'm sure we lost some people here, though. Anybody need any of this explained? No? Okay. Anybody got any other questions they want me to explore? Gloria, how are you doing?
Oh,
What was that, Brian?
I'll shut up because, yeah, you asked Gloria a question. I said, I'll
Oh.
shut up.
Gloria, you got any questions? You got to have questions. Come on.
No, not today.
We're leaving you
Next
behind.
week.
Are we leaving you behind? I hope not. I hope you're getting
No.
something out of this.
Yes. Very interesting.
Okay. All right. Okay, so yeah. Hopefully next week you'll have some questions then. Okay. That works for me. All right. How about you, Bob? Any questions? Or did we leave you behind too?
You left me so far behind, I haven't even got out of first gear. I have no use for it, but it's good theories to maybe later.
Yeah.
Photoshop is not my forte. I just don't grasp it all.
Right.
The layers and this and that, I just got me confused. I don't grasp it. I'm a visual type of person. If I can grasp it visually, I'm all set. But it just doesn't click.
Right.
Maybe it's my age.
Well, what is it about layers that bothers
I don't understand
you?
what layers do. I see what you're doing with them. I just still don't quite. I'm getting the concept, but not completing. I mean, you put a layer in, and what you do with the layer.
Okay, well, here, let me see if I can make it a little bit easier for you. All right. Let's get rid of the word layer completely. All right. We're going to replace it with hopefully it doesn't make it more complicated, but effect. Okay. Now, the effect that you apply to the image is going to take the edit closer to what you're visualizing your image to look like. All right.
The layer is an effect, really. So if I want to do a particular effect to a photograph, I go do it in a layer. That's
Yeah,
what I'm
but we'll just remove the word layer, all right, and we'll just keep it to effect. Okay.
saying. Okay, that's more logical to me.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
So
Now I got
what effect do we want to apply? Well, this is where a little bit of thinking comes into play. And of course, having a little bit of experience helps. But as you've heard me in the past, I say, look for the things that you feel are wrong with your image. All right. And then once you have identified what's wrong, then let's see if we can match something that will correct what is wrong. All right. So,
that makes sense.
we have the picture of the bird here. It was already open, so I'm just going to keep it open. All right. So what are some of the things that are wrong with this image? All right. And this is where you can get yourself a little piece of paper and write down some notes for yourself. Or if you want, print out the image on your office printer and make your notations right on the printout itself. Well, the one thing that I see is that there's a lot of bright spots that are pulling my attention away from the bird. We have this up here and this here. Okay. I'm giving those to you. Those are easy to see, right? I want you to now tell me what else do you see wrong in this image. You're not going to hurt my feelings, all right? So what is wrong with this image? Okay, I gave you these two.
It goes to, I don't like the little bright spot on the left there.
This spot. Awesome. Perfect.
And maybe
Okay.
that twig up on top that's going. Yeah.
Yep. Perfect. Perfect. Okay.
I could stand that, the twig on the bottom. I could stand that. That's not a.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, well, you know, yeah. Don't second guess yourself. All right. Just at this point, it's an exercise of seeing, all right, what is bothering me. Don't make excuses for it and say, maybe I can live with it. No, this is where we can kind of like just wash out the laundry and just put it all out there. Okay. All right. So going beyond the obvious, what else can you identify?
I don't know. Nothing really
All right.
that pops up.
Okay. So let's tackle those few things right there. Okay. We have a lot of distraction going on the outside, correct?
Yeah.
So those are distractions. What can we do to remove some of the distractions? Right off the top of your head, don't put too much thought into it.
And eliminate some of them.
Eliminate them. Okay, awesome.
Eliminate the twig.
Eliminate the twig, eliminate the bright spots. Yep.
That's going up and up following the bird. I'd like to get that out of there.
The which one?
The one to the left, to the right of the bird, to the right, this twig that goes up. Right, where the bright spot, yeah, that twig.
Okay.
I'd like to get rid of that.
Okay. All right. So what tools come to mind that you can use to remove some of these distracting elements?
I have no idea, Doug.
Okay, well, wild guesses are very appropriate here.
No. You don't want to mask it. It's
How about a crop?
yeah, I can track the crop down.
Can we use a crop to eliminate some of the distraction?
Eliminate the crop with the upper brightness, yeah. Yeah.
All right. And if we apply a good enough crop, we can even strengthen our composition. Correct?
Right.
All right. That was easy.
Yeah.
Right? That's a tool. That's a tool in your toolbox.
Was that done with a mask or just
Nope.
with a crop on the original?
That was just done in the crop. That was
Okay.
just done with a crop. Okay. All right. But we still have that kind of like bright spot here and a bright spot here. Okay. How can we control bright spots?
Contrast.
Reduce the contrast. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. How can we do that?
I wouldn't.
Well, let's all right. I know I'm putting you under the gun here. Okay.
No, just I can't come up with the word. In Lightroom, it would be not a mask, but a copy or it's
A clone?
healing brush.
A healing. Okay, yeah. All right. Very good. Okay. So I'm going to create a new layer, a blank layer. All right. Because I don't want to touch my original. All right. So I'm going to go to my healing brush tool. Okay. And I'm going to give myself a nice large round. Okay. And I'm just going to, oops, wrong one. Control Z.
Black, too much.
Yeah, there we go. Where's my brush size? Why? Oh, healing brush. There we go. Wait a minute.
Can I ask something while you're doing this? Because one of the things so this is just a layer right now, not a layer mask. Is that true? This thing you're working on?
This is just
layer
yeah.
mask?
This is just a layer.
New blank layer. Okay.
Yep. A new blank layer. Okay. Why is my okay, here
So
we go.
so are you doing healing to a blank layer?
Yeah. All right. Well,
Okay.
no. Okay, so I'm gonna make my brush large enough. Okay. But what I want to do is I want to go and just check everything along the top. Okay. The type is content aware. Okay.
Yeah.
And see where it says sample all layers. I want that to be checked. All right. Otherwise, it's just going to sample my blank layer and it's not going to do anything. So I want to be able to sample all layers. This should be at 0. Okay. Once that's checked, then we're good to go. All I got to do now is just paint on that distraction. All right. But you want to paint a little bit bigger than what you're trying to cover. All right. Because you want to tell Lightroom, you want to tell Photoshop that you want to sample from around that area. All right. Oh, what the heck happened? I pressed something. All right. And there, it got rid of it. All right. Now, the reason I put it on a separate layer is because at any time, if I need to make any changes to it, I have that option. All right. So here I am.
I understand.
Okay. Right. Okay. So let's try
Can I
it.
jump in with a quick question?
Yeah.
When you were doing that, what was the color from? Is that because you chose the healing brush?
I chose healing brush, correct.
Right. And then you set the setting, sample all layers.
Sample, yep.
So what were you, when you're drawing that, what is it? I guess I was thinking the healing brush, you picked an area and then it figured another area to heal it from.
Yes, yeah. So, yes.
Content aware picks that up.
Correct.
Okay. I got that. Thank you.
Yeah, so the Adobe AI is going to do, it's going to sample from around the area, make its best logical choice. And,
Okay.
all right. And most of the time, I'd say good 95% of the time, it does a decent job. All right. The other times, well, you're going to have to go a little bit more creative. Okay. So we can try and see if we can do the same thing for this side. All right. This side's a little bit tougher because we have other things to play around with besides just a isolated spot. So you can see it didn't work at all. All right. At all. Okay. Now, because I am on a separate layer, I can come over to my eraser. All right. And I can go ahead and, let's change my opacity to 100% here. Okay. And we can erase it. Okay. So that's not going to work here. And the reason it's not going to work is because we have this spot of light here, but that spot of light kind of blurs across up to the bird, right? Because it's a light source, okay? And light sources tend to bloom. So that light bloom is spilling across here very noticeably, but it's also spilling down onto that branch in the foreground. So in this case, removing it 100% isn't going to be a good solution because now how do we explain that color cast and bloom over here if we get rid of that. Okay. So in this particular case, that's not what I would suggest. Okay. But it's very bright. Our eye is being pulled in that direction. So what can we do so that our eye isn't pulled in that direction? What do you think, Bob?
Dim it down somehow.
Dim it down. Absolutely. Absolutely. What controls our exposure? What tool can we use to control exposure?
I don't know. I'm drawing blank.
Drawing blank? Okay. How about a curves adjustment? Curves.
I would never think of that, but that's okay.
Yep. So curves, our curve adjustment controls our exposure. Okay. We can make it brighter. We can make it darker. All right. We can also use a levels adjustment. A levels adjustment will make things brighter or make things darker. Okay. Either one will work. Personally, I like the curves adjustment because it's a little bit more intuitive. Okay. So what we need to do now is we have to keep in mind that this is going to be a global adjustment at first. Means it's going to affect everything in our image. But we're only concerned about that little spot of light in that corner. All right. We're only concerned with this.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to pay attention to. All right. So what I can do is grab it from the center and drag down. As I drag down, it makes things darker, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But here's the problem. Our black point and our white point are locked. So that means this bright point is not going to get darker than that upper part right here. And our black point's not going to get darker than here. Okay? But we need to make that bright point darker. All right? So what we can do, we can move this as much as we want. It's not going to get rid of the really, really bright parts. Okay? But if we grab it from up here, now we can really tone it down. Okay?
Yeah.
All right, so now if I go to my eyeball for the adjustment we just made, all right, I can turn it off and turn it on, and we can see how much we dimmed that down. Okay? All right, so now we need to apply it. All right, so it applied it across everything. We don't want it on everything. We want it just in this area here. So this is now our mask that is allowing all the effect to come through. Follow that? Every effect that is applied by that curves adjustment is coming through. So we got to stop that effect from coming through. So we're going to invert. All right. Here it is. We're in our properties. Okay. Right there we have our invert.
Yeah.
Or we can just do Control or Command I and it will invert it. Okay. So now we're back to where we started. We have our image with that bright spot. Okay. And if I turn off that effect with the little eyeball, nothing's going to happen. Okay.
Right. So
because we turned off the effect. Now we just want to turn it on. Yep. We want to turn it on just here. So for that, we're going to need a brush. We go to our brush. I want a nice soft round brush. Okay. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that white is our foreground color. Yes, you got that. You
I
knew.
understand that part of it.
Yeah, okay. And now all we're going to do is we're just going to brush that area. Okay. And because it's on a mask, we can, if we go a little bit too far, we can do X to switch. All right. Watch our black and white here. If I press X, it changes it. So we want black as a foreground. Okay. And we can clean up wherever we missed. Okay. And we can make our adjustments accordingly. Okay. We can even extend it and say, oh, you know what? I wanna apply that darkening effect to that branch in the background. All right. And we can really, take it down quite a few. Or we can say, you know what? I'm gonna really just apply it all the way around. Okay. Oh, right. And we got, there we go. Okay. Now, I applied quite a heavy-handed effect here. All right. So let me erase all that. All right. Control Alt Delete. Okay. Okay. The other thing I suggest you do is when you have your brush, all right, you have your brush, you have white as your foreground color, okay? Now we just come to the very, very top and we make our opacity, instead of 100%, we make that smaller, maybe like 20%.
Just go over a couple of times.
Exactly. So now, yeah, we just dab until we get to the point where the darkness matches. All right, so we can dab at this corner here, bring that bright spot, dab this down. And all I'm doing is I'm tapping, tap. Okay. And all it's doing is adding little blobs all the way around. So I'm just tap. All right. And that's all it's doing, is adding these little spots. Okay. And if we need to make it a little darker, we can come back to our adjustment. Okay. And make whatever adjustments. All right. There we go. That looks a little bit better. Okay. Now when we go to the eyeball, that's before and that's after. Okay. And that works that looks 100% better with just two adjustments. Two adjustments. Okay. One adjustment to get rid of that spot on the left-hand side. Okay. And one adjustment to darken those other bright areas. And we had the benefit of darkening the edges too. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
It's coming. So.
Okay. No, it's the little steps that make a big difference. It really is. Okay. All right. That's your lesson for today, Bob. You gotta practice that one. All right.
Practice that on some of the photos.
All right.
I've got an old picture that's exactly the same thing with the same trees, and so I'm going to go back and give it another run with these little techniques.
Okay, so now we can take that same principle with that curves adjustment and go the other way. All right. So I'm going to make another curves adjustment, and I'm going to brighten it up just a little bit. Okay, just a little bit. Come back to my mask, the mask here, and I'm going to invert it. We can click right here to invert it. I still have my brush. I still have white as my foreground color.
Yeah.
And then we just go right there and we brighten up our bird. Voila. Before and after.
Yeah.
Okay. And all I did was add a little bit right there. Okay. Oop.
Yeah.
And that's just the same as I did with the darken, except we moved the middle upwards instead of downwards. All right. So up to brighten. Up will brighten. And down will darken. Okay.
Yeah.
Just that curves adjustment will do so much for your image. Okay. If you learn the curves adjustment with the mask the way I did it, there's nothing you can't do to your images, really. Right?
Right.
Awesome.
Practice a little bit.
All right, that's your homework. Practice curves adjustment with the mask.
I will.
All right. Okay.
I will. Okay.
Awesome. All right, guys. It turned out to be an awesome session. I think we got quite a bit. Gloria, what I just taught Bob, that's your lesson too. Okay.
Yes.
Curves adjustment for all those portraits that you need to retouch.
Yeah.
The curves adjust the way I just did it. That's what you got to do. Okay.
Okay.
And like I said, tap, tap, tap. You can do it with a mouse. Click, click, click.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Thank you, Doc.
All righty, guys. Another awesome session. As always, I thank you so much for your support. We'll see you here next week. Have your questions ready, Gloria. Bob, if you have any new questions based on any of this, please have them ready. And we'll see you all.
Thanks, Doc.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Be safe.
Thank you for watching Learning Photography with Duck. Brought to you in association with Milford Photo, your local full-service camera store. Located in downtown Milford, Connecticut, Milford Photo offers you a personalized shopping experience. From the latest camera gear to printing and framing services. And, of course, educational workshops to teach you the finer aspects of photography. Don't forget to tell them Duck sent you.